Silence. It's the loudest weapon a man can ever use. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop feeding her ego with attention, something unexpected happens. She starts to hear the echoes of your absence louder than your presence ever was. That's the art and dark psychology of no contact. It's not about ignoring her. It's about re-establishing power in a world where attention has become the new currency of desire. Most men fail here. They think no contact is revenge. They want her to miss them, to come crawling back. But real no contact isn't about her. It's about you. It's about detaching from the addiction of needing validation. It's about turning the spotlight inward and rebuilding the man she once underestimated. The moment you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. And in human psychology, unpredictability is magnetic. She'll try to provoke you. She'll post things online designed to get a reaction. She'll test the silence, waiting for you to break. But every second you don't respond, the balance shifts. She starts wondering, was I the one who lost him? That question is poison to the female ego. And the longer your silence lasts, the more her mind starts creating stories. Stories that make you larger, colder, and stronger than she imagined. This is where the art turns dark. Because silence doesn't just make her miss you, it forces her to confront herself. It makes her replay every moment, every word, every mistake she made. She begins to project her guilt as curiosity, her confusion as obsession. What used to be your weakness, your feelings, now becomes your fortress. No contact is not a tactic of pride. It's emotional discipline. It's saying, I refuse to negotiate my value through your attention. It's withdrawing your energy from someone who once fed on it until she realizes how much power it actually carried. And when she finally breaks the silence, when she reaches out, it won't be out of love. It will be out of the psychological discomfort of losing control. Men who master this understand that silence is not empty. It's filled with meaning, consequence, and power. It's the sound of boundaries being rebuilt, self-respect being restored, and attraction being reborn on your terms. No contact, when done right, isn't about making her chase. It's about making yourself impossible to forget. Because the moment you walk away without noise, you become the echo she can't silence. Let's dive in. Section number 1. The psychological trap of reaction and why silence reverses it. Every relationship begins with energy exchange, attention, curiosity, validation. But as time passes, most men forget the balance that once drew her in. They start reacting to everything she says or does, as if her behavior defines their worth. A delayed text suddenly feels like rejection. A cold tone becomes an emergency. You begin chasing emotional reassurance like oxygen, and she feels it. That heavy pull of insecurity that quietly tells her, I've got him. This is the psychological trap of reaction, the moment you let her emotional world dictate yours. Every time you respond impulsively, you reinforce her control over your state. She doesn't need to ask for power. You hand it over by needing answers, closure, or attention. And when you give someone control over your peace, you lose the one quality that women find irresistible: emotional sovereignty. Here's what makes it darker. Human psychology is wired to desire what withdraws and devalue what chases. The more reactive you become, the less mysterious you appear. She can predict you. She knows that one story, one picture, one silence is enough to shake your composure. That's when attraction dies, not because you changed, but because she realized she could move you at will. When you go no contact, you break this pattern. You remove the very feedback loop that fuels her sense of superiority. Suddenly, her actions lose their power. She posts, you don't look. She calls, you don't answer. She disappears, you stay centered. That shift doesn't just confuse her. It reverses the psychological polarity. What once gave her comfort, your attention, now becomes uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds desire. As she starts wondering if she still has access to you, her mind begins to spiral. She replays your silence, your calmness, your indifference. Every time you don't react, her ego takes a small hit. Every hour you don't chase, her curiosity grows into discomfort. That's when she starts reaching out. Not out of love, but to relieve that mental tension your silence created. This is why no contact works. It interrupts the stimulus-response cycle. It reminds her that she doesn't own your emotions, and it forces her to confront a truth she's been avoiding. You were never dependent. She was simply being allowed access. Once that access is gone, she feels its absence like withdrawal from a drug. Silence is your reset button. It's how you take back your power without confrontation. Because when you stop reacting, you stop being predictable. And the unpredictable man is always the one she can't forget. Section number 2. Why she hates your silence but craves it. When you stop giving her attention, you trigger the most primitive battle inside her, the war between ego and desire. She may not admit it, but every woman has an inner narrative that thrives on emotional certainty. She wants to know she's still wanted, still admired, still in control. Your silence shatters that certainty like glass. Suddenly, she's not the one deciding when to text, when to pull back, or when to reappear. You've removed her ability to control the tempo. And that's when her ego panics. At first, she'll act unbothered. She'll pretend your absence doesn't affect her. She might even post cryptic quotes, selfies, or happy updates that scream indifference. But beneath that performance, her subconscious starts to itch. The more she tries to appear fine, the more she realizes she's performing for you. Every post becomes a question. Is he watching? And when you don't respond, when you remain silent, it doesn't feed her ego. It starves it. Here's where the psychology deepens. A woman's ego doesn't crave attention from every man. It craves attention from the one she couldn't fully control. When you break contact and vanish, you become the unsolved mystery, the variable she can't decode. That tension between wanting validation and not receiving it is what creates emotional obsession. The silence doesn't just hurt her pride, it hooks her curiosity. In the world of dark psychology, this is called the incomplete loop. The human mind craves closure, and when it can't find it, it keeps replaying the memory. That's why your silence echoes louder with time. She begins wondering, did he move on? Is he happier? Was he pretending all along? Each unanswered question amplifies her emotional need to re-engage. But here's the Stoic paradox. While her ego suffers, her attraction grows. Because deep down, desire is built on uncertainty. The moment she knows she can't fully predict or possess you, you become valuable again. Your absence creates the contrast that makes your presence unforgettable. She hates that she's thinking of you, yet she can't stop. She resents your calm, yet she's drawn to it. That emotional contradiction is what makes silence the most powerful form of communication you'll ever use. Understand this. Your silence is not cruelty. It's clarity. It tells her, you no longer control my emotions. And the moment you detach with purpose, she feels it. She senses that the man who once sought her approval now walks with peace. And nothing terrifies the female ego more than realizing she no longer has influence over a man she once ruled emotionally. Section number 3. From her validation to your self-control. The moment you stop chasing validation, a silent revolution begins inside you. For the first time, your energy no longer flows outward. It turns inward. Every text you don't send, every call you don't make becomes a deposit into your own self-worth. What once felt like loss now transforms into power. Because real strength isn't about how much you can get from others. It's about how little you need from them to remain at peace. You see, When a man operates from need, he becomes reactive. His emotions belong to whoever gives him attention. But when he operates from control, he becomes magnetic, because control is the rarest form of confidence. Most men try to regain power through confrontation, through words, through proving a point. Stoic men do it differently. They take their energy back quietly. They rebuild it through discipline, through purpose, through the art of indifference. This is where the shift happens. When she realizes your silence isn't an emotional reaction, it's a lifestyle. You're no longer playing her game. You've changed the rules. Your focus moves from how do I get her back to how do I get myself back. That's when the dynamic flips completely. The more you invest in your purpose, the more she starts feeling your absence not as punishment, but as evolution. She can sense it, even through the silence. She notices you're no longer seeking updates, not liking posts, not lurking in the shadows of her online life. And that's what unnerves her most, because she expected distance to break you, not build you. She expected silence to make you fade, not rise. Every day you remain silent. You're communicating something profound. You no longer need her to feel complete. In dark psychology, this is called emotional displacement. You redirect your emotional energy from dependency to mastery. You're no longer reacting to her behavior. You're observing it. No longer attached to her validation. You're grounded in your own peace. That's what makes her attraction resurface. Because deep down, women aren't drawn to men who chase feelings. They're drawn to men who lead themselves through chaos with calm. The power of no contact lies in this transformation. It's not about punishing her. It's about purifying yourself. It's detaching from the illusion that her response defines your worth. When you can walk away from validation and still feel powerful, you've achieved emotional freedom. The kind of freedom that no one can manipulate. That's when you become unforgettable. Because while she's wondering what you're thinking, you're too busy living. And nothing haunts the female ego more than the man who outgrows her in silence. Section number 4. How your absence becomes her addiction. When you disappear from her world, something begins to shift in her mind. A quiet, consuming curiosity that starts small but grows louder with every unanswered question. At first, she tells herself she doesn't care, that you're just another man who couldn't handle her. But the human brain has a cruel design. What it cannot explain, it cannot release. And your silence becomes the unsolved riddle she can't ignore. Every time she opens her phone, your name crosses her mind like a ghost. She checks her notifications not to reply, but to feel in control again, to see if you've broken first. But when you don't, when the silence stretches into days and weeks, her mind begins to chase what it can't have. That's the curiosity effect, the psychological loop where the absence of closure becomes a source of obsession. She remembers moments she once dismissed, the way you looked at her, the calm in your tone, the way you didn't beg when things fell apart. She replays those scenes not because of nostalgia, but because her brain is searching for patterns. Why aren't you reacting like every other man? That question alone is enough to haunt her. And here's the dark truth. Every time she tries to move on, your silence pulls her back. Not through guilt, not through manipulation, but through contrast. You've become the stillness she can't find in anyone else. The world around her is noisy, constant texts, attention, validation, but your absence, it's pure, disciplined, mysterious. It stands out like calm in a storm. That's why she begins to crave it, because it's rare. This is how addiction forms, not from constant attention, but from intermittent reinforcement. You gave her connection, then took it away. You showed her warmth, then disappeared into silence. The unpredictability creates psychological tension, and that tension becomes the seed of desire. Every unanswered message becomes a mirror that reflects her own doubts. Did I lose him? Or did I push him away? But here's what separates the Stoic man from the emotional manipulator: intention. You're not using silence to control her. You're using it to detach from illusion. The illusion that love equals pursuit, that attention equals value, that noise equals meaning. You're breaking the pattern. And the moment she realizes she no longer has access to your peace, she starts wanting it more than ever. That's the paradox of silence. It doesn't push her away. It pulls her inward. It makes her chase the calm she once took for granted. And by the time she realizes it, she's not just missing you. She's addicted to the mystery you left behind. Section number 5. What she feels when you disappear. When you go silent, she doesn't just lose your words. She loses the mirror that once reflected her worth. Your presence, your attention, your energy, all of it served as validation. You were the constant reminder that she was desired, admired, and important. The moment that mirror vanishes, she's forced to face a reflection she's not ready for, herself without your validation. At first, she'll fill the void with distractions, friends, social media, new faces, all attempts to silence the growing echo of your absence. But the mind has a way of bringing back what the heart hasn't healed. Late at night, when the noise dies down, that's when the mirror starts to appear again. And this time, it doesn't show confidence, it shows confusion. It shows a woman asking herself questions she never needed to ask before. Was I too harsh? Did I misjudge him? Did I push too far? That's the power of absence. It reveals truth without a single word spoken. Your silence becomes her reflection. The more grounded you remain, the more she sees her emotional instability. The calmer you appear, the more she recognizes her chaos. You're no longer the man she thought she controlled. You've become the mirror that exposes her inner imbalance. This is why so many women try to provoke contact during no contact. They don't necessarily want reconciliation. They want relief. Relief from the discomfort of seeing themselves through your absence. It's not love that drives them to test you. It's ego. She wants to know she still has emotional influence over you. Because if she doesn't, she has to face the terrifying possibility that she was never as powerful as she believed. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as cognitive dissonance, the mental tension that arises when reality no longer matches perception. She believed she could walk away and you'd crumble. But when you don't, her mind scrambles to rewrite the story. That's when curiosity turns into regret, and regret turns into longing. Not because she suddenly discovered her feelings, but because her identity took a hit she didn't expect. Meanwhile, your silence works as quiet revenge, not born from hate, but from evolution. You're not trying to hurt her. You're teaching her a truth that only distance can reveal. That emotional dependence is not power, and losing a man of peace is not a win. The longer you remain silent, the clearer her reflection becomes. And one day, when she finally reaches out, it won't be because she missed your attention. It will be because your absence made her confront who she became without it. That's the moment she realizes your silence wasn't rejection. It was revelation. Section number 6. What happens when she reaches out? After weeks or even months of silence, something predictable yet powerful happens. She reaches out. It may not be a direct confession or an emotional apology. It might come disguised as something simple, a random text, a "Hey stranger," or a question that doesn't even need an answer. But make no mistake, this is the return test, a moment that reveals who truly holds emotional control. You see, her message isn't about reconnecting, it's about checking. She wants to see if the silence still holds power over you, if she can still trigger that old version of you, the one who used to react instantly, the one who used to crave her attention like sunlight. This isn't love speaking, it's the ego whispering, "Let's see if he's still mine." Most men fail this test. The moment they see her name, emotions flood back: hope, excitement, relief. They rush to respond, thinking this is reconciliation. But all they do is confirm what she secretly feared wasn't true anymore, that she still has control. The dynamic resets instantly, and the cycle of imbalance begins again. A Stoic man, however, doesn't take the bait. He understands that silence created the attraction, and silence must protect it. He knows that the moment he replies emotionally, he turns mystery into memory. So instead of reacting, he reflects. He pauses. He evaluates her intent, not her words. Because when someone breaks silence, the meaning isn't in the message, it's in the motive behind it. Women often test before they trust. They want to know if the power shift is real or temporary, if your silence was discipline or a tactic. That's why your reaction defines everything. If you stay grounded, calm, indifferent, you confirm the transformation. You show her that the silence didn't make you colder, it made you composed. That's what truly disarms her ego. Psychologically, this is where reinforcement reversal happens. Before, she was the one being chased, receiving the emotional reward of your pursuit. Now, she's the one seeking validation, wondering if she still matters. That mental flip is what makes your silence so potent. It forces her to experience the uncertainty she once gave you. If you choose to reply, it should never come from need. It should come from clarity. A short, calm, non-reactive message that communicates one thing: you're no longer emotionally available to chaos. Because the real test isn't whether she reaches out. It's whether you've become the kind of man who no longer needs her to. That's the quiet victory of no contact. It's not about making her chase. It's about becoming so grounded in your peace that even when she returns, you realize you no longer need what once controlled you. Section number 7. Becoming the man. Silence built. Every man who truly practices no contact discovers that it was never about getting her back. It was about getting himself back. What began as a moment of restraint becomes a process of rebirth. You start to realize that silence wasn't punishment, it was purification. It stripped away the noise, the dependence, the emotional chaos, until only one thing remained: your essence. In that stillness, you begin to meet the man you were meant to be. The man who doesn't chase attention because he's focused on purpose. The man who doesn't beg for love because he's mastered self-respect. The man who doesn't speak to prove worth because his actions speak louder than words ever could. That's what silence teaches: self-command. The ability to remain unmoved in a world addicted to reaction. This is the rebirth of a Stoic man. You start walking differently, slower, calmer, more deliberate. You no longer text out of fear or check your phone for validation. You wake up with peace, not anxiety. You realize that what used to hurt now fuels your strength. Every unanswered message, every ignored call, every quiet night, they weren't signs of loneliness. They were lessons in emotional mastery. And as you rise, something profound happens. Women begin to sense it. The same energy that once chased now attracts. You no longer seek attention, but you command it. Your silence carries weight because it's no longer a strategy. It's your nature. You've evolved from needing love to embodying it, from seeking peace to becoming it. In dark psychology, this is known as identity reconstruction, the point where pain reshapes perception. You've outgrown the version of yourself who needed her approval. You've learned that attraction without respect is temporary, but self-respect creates a presence that never fades. You've become the man who can walk away without anger, love without attachment, and lead without control. Now, when she thinks of you, she doesn't remember the man who begged. She remembers the man who vanished into purpose, the one who didn't fight to be understood, but chose to be at peace. That's the power of no contact. It doesn't just change how she sees you. It changes how you see yourself. Because the truth is, no contact isn't silence. It's communication of the highest form. It says, I no longer chase what disturbs my peace. I only align with what respects it. And once you reach that point, you'll never need to prove your worth again. That's not the end of the story. It's the rebirth of the man silence built, unshakable, grounded, and free. In the end, silence isn't about distance. It's about definition. It defines who you are when the noise stops. It reveals your strength when your emotions scream for reaction. And it teaches you that real power is not in how loudly you speak, but in how calmly you can remain when the world expects you to break. The art and dark psychology of no contact isn't a trick to make her chase. It's the path to rediscover your own value. When you walk away, you're not losing her. You're finding the man she lost sight of. The man who doesn't measure his worth by her attention, but by his alignment with purpose, peace, and dignity. Every second of silence becomes sacred. It's a moment of healing, of rebuilding, of sharpening your emotional discipline. The same silence that once felt empty now feels full, full of power, full of control, full of clarity. You start realizing that you don't need to explain yourself, prove yourself, or win her over. You just need to become the version of yourself who no longer needs validation to feel whole. And that's when everything shifts. Because when a man learns to walk in silence, the world begins to listen differently. She begins to notice your energy again, not because you're chasing, but because you've detached. Not because you want her back, but because you've risen beyond her reach. That kind of presence is magnetic. It makes her question, rethink, and regret. But more importantly, it makes you unshakable. Silence turns pain into power, heartbreak into purpose, and rejection into redirection. It's not the absence of communication. It's the highest form of it. It says, I've mastered myself. It's how strong men separate from weak patterns, how peace replaces chaos, and how clarity takes the throne over confusion. So, if you're in that quiet stage, wondering if she misses you, wondering if it's working, stop looking outward. Look within. The goal was never to win her back. The goal was to never lose yourself again. Because the man who masters silence doesn't need to prove anything. His energy speaks for him. His peace becomes his power. And in the end, that's what every woman feels, fears, and never forgets. If you found strength in this message, don't just scroll away. Subscribe now. Because here, we don't chase emotions. We master them. Welcome to my channel, where silence builds power, and power builds men.